Hi, I'm Karen Abrams, and I'm the Executive Director of Survivors Rising. We're an Omaha-based nonprofit, and we uplift and amplify the voices of post-crisis survivors. And when we talk about survivorship, we're referring to anybody who has experienced domestic violence or sexual assault, human trafficking, stalking, or harassment. And today I'm going to be speaking with Andrea Poston. She is a survivor leader, and she's a professional financial health coach, also a peer support group facilitator and an independent consultant. And as a survivor leader, Andrea consults with a variety of allied organizations, including Survivors Rising. So today, Andrea is going to be sharing her personal story with us, along with thoughts, observations, and different associations that she's made over the years as a trauma survivor. And at this time, I want to give you, our viewers, a trigger warning. Although Andrea is not going to be going into great detail about the specifics of her abuse, nonetheless, some of what she will be discussing today may be triggering for you. So with that, Andrea, I want to ask you, is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
Again, I'm Andrea Poston. I'm a survivor leader in the community, as she said. I work with lots of survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, and try to help them kind of get their lives back on track. I work with multiple organizations. I've spoke at many conferences and on panels about my story. So I'm happy to be here and help if I can.
Great. So the first question that I wanted to ask you is, as a survivor leader, I know that you've had many opportunities to share bits and pieces of your story as a speaker or as a panelist. And I'm curious, what facets of your personal survivor story would you like people to know more about that you haven't been able to perhaps get to in some of these bits and pieces over the past?
A lot of what I want people to know more about is the struggle that survivors go through after the abuse is over. Just because the abuse is over doesn't mean the lifelong struggle and the survival part of it is over. So I just kind of want to go into that a little bit with people.
Great, thank you. So based on your personal experiences, what do you think that people might not guess about some of the secret powers of survivors? For example, are there aspects of survivorship that were holding you back until you changed your approach or your perspective?
Well, some of my superpowers is very resilient. I can pretty much, survivors learn to adapt to the situation that they're in and survive, obviously. So I'm kind of a chameleon. I can fit in wherever and I can kind of navigate wherever I'm at. Based on what I'm going through at the time, I can pretty much make it through and have made it through every storm that I've been through. I feel like survivors have like a secret hidden intelligence. We can read people very well, and we are very resourceful. So for example, we find ways to make things happen that other people wouldn't think of to find ways to make things happen because we've been left to our own devices in many different areas of life.
Yeah, and I guess when I was asking about things that may have held you back that you had to learn about, I'm remembering a story that you talked to me about, that part of your coping mechanisms included having, pushing people away, even though you really wanted intimacy. And so I'm curious about that journey, that personal journey for you, from having those skills that you needed to survive, but also how it was a barrier to you having the kind of intimacy that you want in your life. And how did you learn to how did you learn to overcome your own survival skills in order to flourish?
Yeah, so growing up in abusive situations and then being in abusive situations as a young adult, um, it's kind of a paradox. You get told, I love you, but at the same time, this person who's telling you I love you is hurting you. So you don't really know what love is. You have to kind of learn it for yourself and learn to figure out what real love is. So that whole pushing people away and wanting them at the same time, early on in my adult life, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder because I struggled with interpersonal relationships. I didn't know how to lean on people. I didn't know how to ask for help because I know that what I've learned is when you need something from somebody, they always need something from you in return. And it's not given out of the kindness of their heart. That's what I've learned. So, and you don't want to give up that piece of yourself. You're tired of giving up that piece of yourself. So you kind of just learn to roll solo and be a loner. But at the same time, we're humans. We crave intimacy no matter what the situation is. But how do you get it? How do you navigate that world? So I sought out mental health help. I saw a therapist for, 4 days a week, sometimes 1 to 2 hours a day for 7 years until I learned how to figure that out. Um, and on top of it, I suffered from dissociative identity disorder, um, just kind of checking out, being on autopilot to navigate things. PTSD. So a lot of those things were barriers. They held me back. But I've kind of learned my own triggers. I've learned to pick up on how something's making me feel and kind of identify those feelings and then either move past them or just kind of sit with them until they subside so I can move on. And it's really been a struggle to learn how to care about people properly and to accept care from people who were genuinely trying to give it to me.
Are there any, practices that you engage in every day or every week that sort of help you to achieve that kind of connection or to overcome some of your own triggers?
Well, my spirit therapist is definitely on speed dial. Um, and then just learning to have people around you that, surround yourself with people that that you have learned that genuinely care about you, and just learn to reach out to those people. Asking for help is a really big struggle for a lot of survivors, like for the reasons I stated earlier. So just kind of getting out of your comfort zone and learning to be uncomfortable with, or be comfortable with the uncomfortable, and just asking for help. And the most somebody can say is, no, I can't help you. And if they want something in return, you have to kind of be strong enough to say, I'm not going to do that I'm not comfortable doing it. Self-care is really important. I wake up an hour early every day just so that I can spend time with myself, figure out, get my footing for the day. I don't do anything. I literally just go sit on my porch and drink coffee for an hour. No kids, no noise, no nothing. And then music helps. Music is a big coping skill that I use, and I also teach it to my kids. It kind of bypasses like your brain and goes straight to like your soul, like your heart. So the right kind of music kind of sets the mood for the day. And it just kind of gets me on the right start.
I love that. Thank you. So a little bit earlier, you were talking about, sort of some of those secret powers that you have. And I was wondering if you could go into a little bit more detail about some of these aspects of survivorship that have helped you be successful and move forward and accomplish your goals.
Well, it's like a catch-22. I can't say we, because I can speak for all survivors, but me, with the not being able to ask for help, the not being able to have the courage to ask somebody to help me with anything, I've kind of taught myself that if I really want something, I got to get it or I just can't have it, which makes me work a lot harder. I actually teach other people how to advocate for themselves, how to um, take care of themselves, financial literacy. Like I teach survivors how to survive in a world where they may not be able to depend on someone, or they may be too scared to depend on someone because of, having been so dependent on someone in the past, maybe domestic violence or a parent, abusive parent. Um, like I said, it's some of those things are a barrier, but some of those things actually make some of us very successful in life because me, I told myself a long time ago, I'm not going to have anybody tell me what to do. I'm not punching a clock. I punched a clock because I felt like it, not because I ever had to. I taught myself numbers really early on in life. I read a lot of books. I was emancipated at 16. So had a lot of time on my hands and spent a lot of time alone. And I just knew that, and I had great people, like some good mentors in my life at that time. But I knew that I wanted to be better than my situation that I came out of. And I knew I wanted to help people with their situation once I learned how to help myself.
And I love that you talked about having some good mentors in your life. Can you share a little bit more about how you were able to, I don't know if you pursued mentorship or, how did that happen and how did you sustain those relationships? Can you talk a little bit about that?
So yes, mentorship. I didn't seek it out. I was 14 years old. Mom said I had to work. I had to, get a job, pull my own weight. So I went and got a job at Burger King, and my boss, the general manager there, she kind of took me under her wing. She taught me things. She taught me a lot about running the restaurant versus just working in a restaurant, which helped me a lot learn how to be an entrepreneur later on in life. She made me learn everything. Was She took me in when I couldn't live at home anymore. She took me to the hospital when I needed health care, when, I'm all bruised up and, things had went wrong. She sought out medical attention for me. She hid me. She took me into her house. Even though she could have lost her job and probably went to jail. I was a minor. And my mom did call the police on her. Police came to her house. She hid me in her house. They never found me. And she advocated for me. She put everything, her job, her family, everything on the line to help me. And so to this day, she's one of my favorite people. I respect her a lot. And even though I messed up multiple times and I borderline personality, didn't know I had it at the time, but I pushed her away many times. I'm like, why do you love me? You have no reason to love me. Like, what do you want from me? And she never asked for anything in return, not to this day. And so all she ever asked of me was to graduate high school. She came to my graduation when no one else did. And all she ever asked of me was to go to college and to find myself in a healthy relationship, which I didn't know what that was at the time. So that didn't happen. But I did those other things that she told me to do. And having somebody out there that was proud of me made me want to succeed, because I didn't have anybody out there before that was proud of me. Nobody cared if I went to school. Nobody even cared if I lived or died. Nobody cared about me at that time. So just having mentorship really made a difference in my life.
Thank you for sharing that. And can you talk a little bit about how, you shared that you give survivors advice, financial advice, and but do you find that yourself also acting in that mentorship role for other survivors or even other trauma survivors that may not be in the sort of the exact kind of trauma that you experienced?
Oh yeah. So I'm a foster parent. I've also just kind of mentored other people along the way, like other survivors and kids that have gone through it. I take in kids that have been severely traumatized. sexual assault, trafficking, you name it. And I kind of help them like navigate things that they've been through. And I don't know if this answers your question, but I kind of like I think it's easy for me to care for them because I pick up on things that like the average person doesn't. So like when they're acting out or when they get kicked out of school or when they're cussing out their teachers and stuff, those are trauma responses that a normal child doesn't is no child is born bad, period. It's just not a thing. Children are not born to act this way. They're taught these things by somebody who hurt them and they're reenacting it. And those are survival mechanisms for them. They get a bad vibe, they're going to cuss you out. So I teach kids like kind of how to navigate the things that they've been through and how to make good choices going forward and try to give them a better life the best that I can. It's been a struggle, but I do what I can. And then with survivors, I think we all help each other. Like I can't say that I help survivors more than they help me. Just being around them helps me. There's I'm not going to name any because I'm not sure if I have permission to, but there's been 2 or 3 that I can just think of off the top of my head that have been just amazing in my life. And had they not been put in my life, I wouldn't know some of the things that I know about how to navigate through survivorship.
Thank you. So kind of, I don't know, amplifying on that. I'm curious what you would like the friends and family members of survivors to know and understand about their loved one so that they don't give up or turn away.
Yeah, so first and foremost, if you haven't been through certain types of trauma, I mean, everybody has some kind of trauma in their life. It's inevitable. But depending on the type of trauma that the specific survivor has been through, don't try to really understand what they're going through. Just be there. Make sure that if you know somebody who's currently going through something, that you can be a resource for them to help them. A lot of people are fearful to leave the situation that they're in because they believe their abuser is going to do something to them if they leave. So be that resource, be that person that can help them, be trauma informed. And by that, I just mean be willing to be mindful of how you speak to them. It's easy to tell somebody, I recently saw domestic violence, had a person that reached out to me regarding domestic violence. And it's easy to just say, why don't you just leave? Like, why do you put up with that? That's not being trauma informed. They are fearful, they are afraid, and we don't know that that person hasn't come and found them in the past. Sexual assault, you never know if you're going to see the assailant again, if you're going to see the person that hurt you again. So you're not going to speak out about it. Trafficking, those rings are huge. And it's scary to testify. It's scary to go through that and then speak out about it or even tell your story because you don't know who's going to come find you and shut you up. So just be trauma informed. The medical field, doctors, nurses, they really need to take a step back and kind of look at their procedures. Quick example, taking my kid into the doctor, they asked her right in front of me, is anybody hurting you at home? Not okay. I could be hurting her at home. So she told them, why would you ask me that in front of my mom? And I was very proud of her for that because I've taught her that. It's just, teaching people how to advocate for themselves. And then friends and family, just like I said, be there. Don't give up on them. They don't mean what they do. I push people away. I get in my triggers or my feelings or my episodes. I don't know what to call it. And I don't want to be bothered. I don't want anybody to talk to me. I don't want anybody to mess with me. I can't even stand to hear the vibrations of somebody walking across my floor. So they know just to back off, leave me alone. And I give them their space too when they need it. So that's all I really wanted to tell people is just be there, be quiet, just be there. Like, or ask in a discreet setting when you're talking to kids, and take them away from their parents when you're talking to them.
Okay, so in other conversations that you and I've had, you've expressed the strong opinion that the community has a role, and we've been talking about friends and families, a little bit about the medical field, but what do you think the community's role could or should be related to abuse and trauma that's happening in our midst?
So we are all mandated reporters. There is nobody that is exempt from that. If you know something, say something. And that, it goes back to being trauma informed. Also, when you're speaking to a survivor or somebody who's currently going through a situation, asking the right questions, not giving up. Don't just say it's none of my business, because it is. And then the community, well, one thing I want survivors to know is that it's okay to advocate for yourself. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to, it's your healthcare. It's your body. You've been through the trauma. It's okay to say this is not okay. Look a little deeper. Call people out when they say something that hurts you or makes you feel some type of way. Call them out on it. People have to know that what they're saying or what they're doing is hurting you. It's okay to advocate for yourself.
And is there anything else that you wanted to share about your personal story, your personal journey that you haven't gotten the chance to talk about?
So yeah, there's a lot of when going back to the beginning, the first question that you asked about what would I want survivors to know, or not just survivors, but friends and family or healthcare providers of survivors, is, like I said, the abuse doesn't end. The mental part of it and the physical part of it doesn't end just because the actual abuse itself is over. So what I mean by that is, in my personal story, I've had multiple surgeries, 30 something surgeries. I lost count, I stopped counting. And ranging from fixing my colon to, taking out certain organs that just quit functioning, multiple infections because my body can't fight them off, because I grew up with infections that weren't taken care of. My body doesn't even respond to antibiotics. It doesn't respond to certain medications. So treatments don't work for me. We're more susceptible to get autoimmune diseases because our body, our bones and our muscles maybe not were able to form a certain way or form properly because our bodies are still forming when we're young. And when we're young adults and young children, our bodies aren't equipped. We're not equipped for that abuse. Nobody's equipped for abuse. So when it happens to you, it causes like a whirlwind of problems. Like I said, just organs and multiple autoimmune diseases, lack of being able to take antibiotics. So I just want people to know that we're not faking. We're not hypochondriacs. It's not psychological. It's not in our heads. We really do feel the pain. We really do. And what I mean by pain is I had a doctor tell me once, it's all in your head. It's psychological. I can't physically find anything wrong with you, but a trigger, something that triggers us or makes us feel like we're in the abuse again, can cause physical pain. That's something wrong with me, right? That's not all in my head. It's real pain. And when you're having a flashback or a post-traumatic stress memory, it can cause physical pain. So just be mindful of that. People need to understand that the person is not faking. They're not seeking attention. Really, they probably wish you would leave them alone, but be there for them and advocate for them or with them.
So as we're wrapping up, I'm curious if there's anything else that you would like to say to other survivors in closing?
Just try to get out of survival mode. Being in survival mode is exhausting. It takes a lot of energy. And what I mean by survival mode is constantly waiting on the next shoe to drop, constantly waiting on the next bad thing to happen, because as survivors, we don't always get told that it's okay to be okay. Sometimes we're so used to the drama, and we're so used to the violence, and we're so used to the abuse that when everything is calm and there is no storm, we don't know how to function because we've never had to function in that way. So it's okay to be okay. It's okay to not be okay. Like, be mindful of how you feel and navigate it however you need to navigate it, but try your best to not live your life in survival mode and live your best life the best way you know how, like the best way. Whatever you want to do, go out and do it. Whatever people told you can't do it twice. You know what I mean? Like, just if you want something bad enough, go get it. Like, you deserve it. You went through hell. You deserve it. So stop worrying about what's going to happen next and just like live today.
Great. Thank you so much, Andrea. I appreciate you. I want to again let our viewers know that you're Andrea Poston, survivor leader in the Omaha area. And thank you.
Thanks.